I had a splendid voice. In fact, I'd sing in opera if they'd give me my choice. I wrote to Oscar Hammerstein that I would be his star. He said, come down and sing for me, and I'll see how good you are. And I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months. No, I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months. I sang the wise old owl, and he left the room at once. So I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months.
Welcome to episode 8. My guest this week is Tim Loane. Tim is a writer, actor and director whose career has spanned over 3 decades. He began his career with the legendary Tinderbox theatre company, which he co-founded, and with this he launched the careers of many of Northern Ireland's finest playwrights. His own career reached international heights when his short film Dance Lexie Dance was nominated for an Academy Award, and it screened just before the main feature on Christmas night and was watched by an audience of millions. That's not bad going for a little film from Northern Ireland. In this episode, Tim tells us how he got started in the industry, the highs and lows of being a television writer, and really how the industry works for the writer. If you're interested in finding out more about Tim and his work, you can check out the link in the podcast description. And if you like what you hear, please hit the like button. And if you know anyone who would be interested in the contents of this episode, please send them the link. Without further ado, I give you Tim Loane.
So, Tim, can you tell us what is it that you're best known for by the general public?
Oh, does the general public know me at all? I don't know. I mean, that's probably the one question that one individual can never answer about themselves. However, I will say that there was a time back, I directed a short film in 1997, which was nominated for an Oscar. And you would be amazed how often people would still remember that. I think that was the time pre-social media and all of that. So we were on newspaper covers and we were on TV news and stuff like that. So when we did something like that, you know, one became kind of locally known, let's put it like that. I don't know. Locally, I wrote a couple of theatre plays that were kind of provocative politically. 20 years ago, I wrote the first one actually, called Caught Red-Handed, and it did cause a stir. It caused a stir politically, so there were official responses from various political parties and politicians themselves. So that became a bit of a notoriety, I suppose, I got rather than anything else. But subsequent to that, I used to dream of being. I mean, I started this whole lark as an actor, and I used to dream of that. But that never really became. I did all right. I enjoyed very much acting in the theatre, and never really got anything significant in screen. But I think as a TV writer now, that's what I do. I wrote Teachers 20 years ago as well. Teachers for Channel 4, which definitely bumped me up the ladder in a big way, and that sort of opened various doors and created opportunities for me.
Okay, so were you someone who was, say, brought up in the theatre? Was it something that you went to, say, as a kid or as a teenager, or was it something? Because I have a vague memory of you on the documentary, the Field Day documentary, back in 2006, I think it would have been, talking about Thomas Kilroy's Double Cross.
Oh, good memory. Yeah. No, you see, my father was a Methodist minister, so I was watching a performance of sorts every single Sunday, and I was part of an audience. I was aware of this idea of communication, of someone speaking and people listening out of choice and being inspired by it. And there's no question that I think that somehow bled into my psyche and informed the whole idea of communicating with an audience. But no, we didn't go to the theatre a lot as kids. Absolutely not. In Belfast, there was not really any theatre to go to. But that I had a couple of formative moments. I went to see, you mentioned Double Cross, the Field Day show, and I couldn't believe, I was sitting in the front row and I got the tickets almost by accident. I was at university at the time and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. I sat in the front row and I watched, and it was Stephen Ray, so close I could touch him. And I couldn't believe that this just spoke to me, the whole experience of it, in a way that was quite electric. And I left the theatre the night overwhelmed, also feeling kind of saddened by it, because I couldn't connect with how I was going to be part of doing that, and actually make it part of the life that I was living as a student at Queen's. But then I met up with a bunch of like-minded people at university. We started a theatre company. We left university. We started a theatre company called Tinderbox. And off we went, and we actually found our own way to connect with our own audience, I suppose.
And how was the audience receptive to you? Was it a hard sell to get people in the door? Was it, or were people actually? Because I have this impression, because I studied in Derry, I always thought the culture and the art scene in Northern Ireland was, although quite small, it was really, really strong, and people were very supportive of it. Did you find that to be the case, or?
I'd say the people who were supportive were extremely supportive, but they were few and far between. I mean, actually, yeah, I mean, there were those who would come and see everything you do, and they would wait afterwards to talk to you about it and tell you how passionately they felt about it. But it was heartbreaking. And my God, we toured Ireland north and south, and often we're banging our heads on brick walls. What we thought was very good, some of it was very, very good work. That was playing to a packed house in Belfast, for instance. But then you take it to Strabane or Galway, for that matter, and it's hard to drum up it was hard to drum up an audience. But I think all theatre companies were probably finding the same thing. I mean, we were up against principally Field Day or Druid, the big behemoths of Irish theatre, and people knew that they were safe. They knew what they were going to get with those guys. We were just young upstarts. Well, we used to be young upstarts who were trying to offer an alternative to that. The answer, I've given you both answers there, which is that no, it wasn't easy, but yes, those who showed up were passionate supporters of it.
The work you produced, can you give us an idea? So obviously the one I spoke to you just a couple of minutes ago before we started was the one that I would probably know the best was Gary Mitchell, his work, if you're familiar with his work. What other types of plays or genres did you cover, or did you have a very specific?
What we wanted to do to begin with is we wanted to put on plays that weren't normally done there or hadn't been seen maybe in a long time. That's very broad, isn't it? But that we very soon with Tinderbox, we discovered that there was a gap, which was the new writing gap, which that nobody, new writers were sending their scripts to Druid or the Abbey or the Lyric, but they weren't even getting a letter to say, thank you, I've got your script. And so we decided that we wanted to become a kind of a sounding board for people. And we were deluged with scripts, so that we found suddenly that we had an appetite for it, but that the new writers desperately needed a way to have their work seen or heard. So Gary was one of the early writers. Now Gary had already had I think a radio play or two radio plays. I acted in at least one of them, produced by BBC Radio 4. I know that because Pam Brighton, who was an extremely influential and supportive radio producer and theatre director, excuse me, Pam really was the one who put Gary in the right direction. Gary came to us. We met Gary. I said, no, I met Gary doing one of his radio plays, and I said, have you got one for the stage? And he said, yeah, here it is. He wrote it straight away in 2 or 3 days. He was an unbelievably quick worker. But he had the idea already fully formed in his head. Anyway, Gary sent us that script, and we said, "Yeah, fantastic, let's do it." And we did. And it was one of those. It was a big learning experience for me as a director, but for Gary as a writer as well. A very steep learning curve and all of that. But we were very proud. I hope Gary still is. I guess he is very proud of the fact that we were offering a voice that just wasn't heard in any other way. And the audiences, we were only ever playing in small venues. So you're talking 100, maybe 150 seats. But they were being sold, the people were coming to see it. So, very proud of that. Gary's not the only one. I mentioned already Dara Carville. I directed his first play as well, which was, well, the first play was called Grandfather Grave, and then the next one with proper production of Language Roulette. Dara, who's now a very successful TV writer, has had many plays produced in the Abbey and around the world and all of that. But again, Dara was a young guy who desperately wanted to work in the theatre, and Tinderbox really was the only outlet. And so we formed a good, healthy partnership, I think. We didn't have an overt political standpoint. I think there certainly would have been certain aspects of political statements that we would have avoided. You know, we would not have wanted to be seen as partisan, particularly. We did work that tended to be, some of it was very political, actually. But then we could surprise you. For instance, we did a play called Gibraltar Strait, which was a verbatim piece about the inquest into the murder of the 3 IRA people in Gibraltar, which was an extraordinary experience to do. I acted in that because we know that the families of the 3 people who were killed, they came to see our theatre show in a 100-seater venue. It was extraordinarily intimate and painful experience, I think, for everyone involved. But we did that, for instance. But then within a year, I think of that, we did a satire by Robin Glendinning called Donny Boy, which is a vicious vicious satire on blinkered republicanism. You know, so we were prepared to swing both ways, if you like.
You were prepared to flip over. There was no
We were prepared to criticize everyone, I think, is the point. Or to choose different not criticize. So please, that's a terrible thing. Not criticize anyone. To analyze deeper, and to put people to ask difficult questions of everyone. Mm. But we weren't only asking questions of one side, if you like.
Yeah. So. Which is the point of theatre, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it great? Yeah.
100%. But I think that was reflected in the choice in the plays that we chose. That you could be quite surprised at some of the choices, you know.
So that led. You mentioned earlier on. I rewatched it again. It's up there on the internet. Dance Lexie Dance. That was the first time I would have heard your name being mentioned, because I remember at the time it was 97, 98.
That's right, 96. No, actually it was 96 we shot it, and in 97 we hit the big time.
Yeah. I remember at the time everyone talking about this little short film from the north of Ireland. Like everyone was talking about it, and I remember seeing it at the time and being really impressed, and then watching it again, like nearly 30 years later. I watched it again. I just thought, my God, like what a little short film. I mean, where did that come from?
It's a perfect example of how creating a piece of drama, whether on stage or screen, creating a piece of drama is all about the right people working together in the right frame of mind. We're so lucky. The actors were perfect. I knew Kimberly from who played the little girl. I knew her from before. I had acted in a theatre show. I played the part of her father the year before. I knew she was good. I knew she was perfect for it. And I knew BJ Hogg, the late BJ Hogg, sadly, who played Lexie. So I knew those people. I had worked with some of the other people, but look at for instance, my brother Terry was the designer. Most of the other people in the crew, I sort of knew a little bit, but we were just lucky with the right people came together at the right time in the right way, with the right story that Dave provided, which was a gorgeous, warm-hearted little story from the outset. How did it came to? I remember I went to the BBC. I spoke to Robert Cooper, who was the producer. I was head of drama at BBC Northern Ireland, and I had said to him, I had acted 3 lines and a gun in 4 or 5 different TV dramas in a row, and I was bored of it. And I was fed up with being spoken to badly by directors. And I said to Robert Cooper that I know how to talk to actors. You know, I've directed the theatre. I know I want to make a film. And he said, "All right, leave it with me." And it was Robert who put me in touch with Pierce Moore and Derry with the nerve centre, and the rest is sort of history.
Like,
I'm very proud of it. I mean, it's very simple. It's so much. I'm not trying to denigrate it, because it is a really good little film, but so much luck is involved. Some good fortune rather than luck. Is there a difference? I don't know.
because like it had a huge international success. It was at the, I mean, you were nominated for the Academy Award the same year, which is largely considered a vintage year of Oscars. I mean, that was the same year, Titanic,
Right.
Jack Nicholson,
right.
LA Confidential.
Right. Robin Williams, yeah. Oh, it was mad. It was enormous. We had to sit through all those goddamn Titanic speeches. Actually, we missed one. We missed Celine Dion was giving it welly while I thought, fuck this, I've had enough, and went to the bar where we met Brenda Fricker, who was also waiting, giving Celine Dion a miss all those years ago. Yeah, it was an extraordinary year. The other thing, it's kind of interesting to me how because it was pre-social media, it meant it wasn't available. You couldn't see it on iPlayer. You couldn't send it on your phone. You couldn't. The only way you were going to see this was either in the cinema, and I think we only ever had pre-prints, so that wasn't going to happen, or it was going to be on television. And the BBC, in their wisdom, put it on TV quite a bit, and they put it about the place. So they give it to RTE. I presume they didn't even pay for it. But they showed, BBC itself showed it a number of times. And the high point for me was that they showed it on Christmas night on BBC Two, just before the main feature on Christmas night. And I can't even remember what the main feature was. I think Gary Oldman was in it for some reason. I remember that. But that meant we had an audience of millions on Christmas night. And it's like, wow. So that meant an awful lot to me. Because when you make a short film, you don't expect anything more than your family and 200 or 300 people to see it, if you're lucky. But the very fact that we knew that night, like millions, 6 or 7 million watched it. So that is something I'll take to my grave with me.
So was that the start of you beginning to move towards working in television? Was that what kind of? Or what was?
It was part of it. It's kind of not. It's slightly out of order. It's slightly out of the actual out of sync, because I started writing for screen just before that, and I'd written a short film, a 30-minute film called Out of the Deep Pan, which actually was filmed the same year as Dance Lexie Dance. Even though I didn't direct it, Kieran J. Walsh directed it beautifully. That was really and that was a competition for the BBC. Which I was fortunate enough to be chosen, and they made that film. That turned me into a TV writer. But it was purely because I had seen that competition advertised, and I thought, what the hell? I had this idea, I'm going to write it. That was actually before Dance Lexie Dance. So when the two things came together, I was already thinking like a TV writer. I think whenever Dance Lexie Dance came along. The other, of course, is tremendous irony. I had written for Ballykiss Angel. I wrote an early episode for, I can't even remember. It was quite series 3 or 4, 2 or 3 or 4. Anyway, but the relationship between me and them wasn't that great. And I love the irony of the fact that I was nominated for an Oscar and sacked off Ballykiss Angel on the same week. So you go, do you think Peter ever going to be under any illusion as to what this business is going to be like?
Yeah. One door opens, another one closes, and another door opens again. So, so what you're a TV writer now, primarily is what people know you best as, and you had a massive hit in the early noughties with the fantastic Teachers. Everyone still loves that show. Years down the line, I remember watching it at the time and thinking it was fantastic, and kind of when I think back of it now, now I am working in teaching, I kind of go, you got it right. You got it right. What was the genesis behind that idea?
I tell you what, it's a long story. I'm going to keep it short for you. I was commissioned by Channel 4 to write a news series about early 20 somethings in Belfast, right? This is directly after around about directly a year or two after Ballykiss. No, after Out of the Deep Pan, the first film the BBC of mine that the BBC had made. And they came and I started to write it, and they loved the first two episodes. And then, for some reason, they shat themselves. And I was writing on the middle of writing episode 4 when they said, actually, we're not going to do it. And it was a terribly painful moment because they had, like, location scouts were already looking for where to shoot it. Agents were being sent casting profiles. And though this had been greenlit, and then they pulled it. So I was devastated and thought, I'm never ever going to write another thing in the world. And 12 months later, Jonathan Young, who had been lined up, who was to produce that series, he came back to me and he said, you know that series you did about the 6 young Belfast people? He was working for Channel 4 then, and he said, well, would you be interested in writing a series about characters like that, but set in a school? And I said, yeah, damn right. Can I shoot it in Belfast? And he said, no. No, that's just not an option. I go, okay. So Jonathan and I put our heads together and devised, I created Teachers. And it was, I mean, what the PE teacher was one of the original characters in the Belfast show. There's not much that it has in common with the Belfast show, except the tone in the world. So these are, educated middle class young people who have all their bright futures ahead of them, and they just can't get out of the pub. And that was kind of the premise of the Belfast show, which then lifted and moved into the Teachers. So straight, Jonathan brought it to Tiger Aspect TV company in London, and they said, yes, we'll produce it. So on it went. I had nothing to do with subsequent series, but the first series is one of the things I'm very proud of. Indeed, I'm not quite sure why it still works now, because there's no mobile phones, there's no internet, and it's obviously people are smoking indoors, and it's like, to me, it still in many ways looks old-fashioned, but I think the acting is so good, or is so fresh, or something. There's something very. I think the director Richard Dale, who started it, was brilliant. I mean, he brought something absolutely remarkable to it. Maybe I did too, but Richard, anyway, I like to credit Richard in a big way.
So you mentioned something interesting there, and I suppose it's something that people don't really talk about too much, and that's the life of a TV writer. It's not all TV series and awards and success or anything like that. There's a lot of hills you go down. There's a lot of valleys, as it is. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I suppose the realism of it, really.
The realism of it is, let me go back to Dance Lexie Dance, which was we came back from the Oscar ceremony, and within 24 hours, I was standing in the rain on the Lisburn Road in Belfast, standing in the rain at a bus stop on my way in to meet somebody for a cup of coffee, and I was out of work. So there's the reality. You actually go from Hollywood to the rain in Belfast within 24 hours, and that's so it does work like that. For me, I've always been very serious about committing to time. So I come from I have a very strict work ethic. So I'm sitting down at my desk at approximately 9:30 every morning, and I leave it at 5:45 usually every day. And I will put that. I really do believe that is the method. I treat it like a real job. Which does mean that, sadly, very often my working day is just me staring at a computer screen for 8 hours. Zoom has been a brilliant thing in some ways, because it now means I'm talking to other writers and talking to co-writers regularly. But when I think back, there was times when I would spend days without speaking to another soul, possibly even weeks. But I mean, the aim with a TV writer obviously is to get to the point that you're never out of work. So you're always developing different shows. You're always, you're spinning plates. You're trying to balance things out and spread them out so that you can manage everything, but also that you don't ever want to run out and not be under commission. But I'm touching wood as I say that, because I've had times I've gone from the very best year I ever had was 2007-8, I think, around about then when I wrote Minder for Channel 5. I wrote all 6 episodes of Minder, which was, the critics didn't like it, but the audience did. But anyway, for me, it was a great year's work. I loved it. And we were about to shoot series 2, start work on series 2, and the worldwide financial crash happened, and Channel 5 cut back the money. And so for the next 18 months, I didn't earn a single penny. So that's the reality of it. Like, nothing for 18 months. Fortunately, again, I'm touching on it again. Like, that's a long time ago. But yeah, ups and downs, absolutely. Yeah.
So nothing's guaranteed in it. It's
Nothing's guaranteed. And the fact, when that experience with that series, the Belfast series that I wrote before it got cancelled, before Teachers happened, even then that was greenlit. I had done all the celebrating. Everyone I knew was going to be. All my actor friends were going to be in this thing. Everything. It was a big deal for me and for Belfast drama, actually, because nobody shot dramas here then.
Yeah.
It actually ended up as a news story when they cancelled it, because it was like, oh my God, they're going to shoot a whole drama series in Belfast. And then it was cancelled. So yeah, I learned that a long time ago, is that even when something's greenlit, it can still be cancelled. So it's a bit shit sometimes.
As an outsider looking in, it sounds as if this is a lot more common. Like, you will be developing stuff, bang, it's gone the next day, and you have to move on. This is not isolated. This is literally every writer working in television.
No, you see, there's no. I don't think there's two. There are two. Let me see. Let's try and split into 3 different types of writers. There's the likes of Jed Mercurio at the let's say at the top. Okay, who everything he writes is made at the minute. Although, there will be stuff that he's writing that isn't made, but he's at the top of his game, so pretty much everything he writes gets made, and people are competing to pay the higher fee for it. Okay, then somewhere in the middle, there's the likes of me, who is constantly developing new stuff, hoping that I'm being commissioned to write it, hoping that it will be made, but without there being any guarantee that it's going to be made. But there is guarantee that they're going to pay you to write it. Then there are other writers who, and this is not a top-down system, by the way. Then there are other writers who are constantly writing for other shows, and I've done a bit of that too. Writing for. I wrote for Casualty for a while. I wrote for Red Rock, the cop show, the Dublin cop show, which I enjoyed very much as a process, writing wise. But so I have done that, and I will do more of that. Perhaps a couple of years ago, I wrote a couple of episodes of Marcella for ITV. I also wrote a couple of episodes of Das Boot for Sky Germany, which is another bizarre experience. But the point is, that's me working as a guest writer on other people's shows. So I do that. It's not my main job, and it's not where my ambitions lie, but I can do it, and I do it sometimes. But there are other writers, and that's all they do. They don't bother developing stuff. They wouldn't. What they think is more efficient use of their time to simply focus on writing for other shows.
So what to date now? So what has been the most long-term project you would have worked on recently?
Oh Jesus, the one that I'm working on right now, right this minute. Right, I'm gonna, as soon as we finish this, I'll open my my USB stick, because I'm still that old, and that's what I do. And I'm going to be finishing it, because I'm going to deliver episode 6 tomorrow of 6-part TV drama. It's a historical drama for French television that I'm co-writing with a French writer called Claire Le Maréchal. And I started working on this. The first meeting I had was just before the first lockdown. Okay. So it was January, what's that, 3 years ago, it's near 3.5 years. So this show, now that I'm about to submit the script for episode 6 tomorrow, is now, I've been working on it for 3.5 years. Okay. And it's still not greenlit. Okay. Now they've got half the money, or they've got a percentage of the money lined up, but not all of it. So until they do, there's no guarantee. So there you go. That'll give you an example, 3.5 years. And we're not there yet. So A lot of it is experiment. A lot of it is trial and error when you're writing a script. You know, so these 6 scripts that we're delivering the final one tomorrow are very different from the first draft of the first script that I sent 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So there was a version of this series that we wrote, and they went, that's not quite what we want. And we reconfigured it, go back to the drawing board, start again, and give a new version of it. I like to, my memory of Teachers was that first episode of Teachers, I wrote 13 different drafts. Now, yeah, that was trial and error. It was one of my first big jobs. So I was doing a lot of learning on that. But that I still maintain that the shooting script was basically, you know, give or take a little bit of focus, basically a version of draft 4 or 5. But the process on working on a new show is to test it in every way. Can we make it funnier? No, that's too funny. It's not real enough. Can we make it more real? That's too real. It's not funny enough. You know, is that character too old? Let's try it with a younger version. No, let's try it with a female. No, let's try it with a trans character. You know, so you're experimenting with every aspect of the story that you're delivering to find out which way works best. And you're always hoping that the execs that have commissioned you are wise and have good taste and good judgment and will agree with you as to what it is that you're looking for. Well, that doesn't always happen.
Do you feel as if you've hit a level of writing now that you're happy with, or are you someone that's always going back and kind of learning more and, you know, oh, I should have done this maybe or something like that? Or are you just, right, don't dust it, move on?
No, oh, Jesus, no. No, every time I write something, every time I start working on something new, I realize how ignorant I am. I go, shit, I thought it was good. Especially if it's a period piece before, I've never done historical drama. And I thought, yeah, this is no problem. And I go, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to train up a whole other set of muscles. But the basics at the core of all drama are the same. I think it's not that I'm a level of expertise as a writer, but I do have an understanding of the basics. So I'm much less likely to waste my time trying something that I know won't work. So I think, so yeah, it makes me a more efficient writer than I was before. So whether, you know, the question of whether there's talent there or not, that's not for me to say. The question of whether better than what I wrote before, I can look back at earlier scripts and say, yeah, okay, that one's very good, and I'm very pleased with that. I can look back on other ones and go, wish I'd had time to do another draft.
Okay, that's what you kind of got me to the point now where there. One of the things I love is TV drama. I love theatre as well, and what I've noticed is the amount of playwrights who enter TV drama. And it seems to me that theatre writing and writing for TV sort of naturally go hand in hand, more so than theatre for film. Is there? Yeah. Am I talking bollocks there? Or
no, you certainly aren't. No, I agree with you I agree with you completely, because I think, apart from anything else, there are very few training courses or degrees that one can do to learn to be a screenwriter at this part of the world. So that theatre is very often, certainly was for me, the only way I was going to ever have access to what it is to write something, or what it is to have actors read something, what it is to have something in front of an audience. So it's a natural start point. But the reason why theatre writers succeed on television, in my view, is because television relies on dialogue so much more than film does. Of course, there are lots of films, like lots of Mike Leigh films or Ken Loach films that rely upon dialogue in David Mamet, oh my God, really long list of filmmakers who rely on dialogue very, very heavily. But I think it's you think about David Ireland's new series, he comes absolutely from a theatre background. Lisa McGee was one of her first plays, if not her very first play, was produced by Tinderbox in Belfast. So it's kind of, I think it theatre gives young writers, a kind of a springboard. That's not to say, though, for 1 second that writing for TV is better than writing for screen. sorry, is better than writing for stage, because I don't believe that's the case at all. But I also think as writers get older, they realize that if they want to make a living, the theatre is a very difficult place to do it.
So that wraps up this episode. A big thank you to Tim for taking time out of his busy schedule to talk to me. If you've enjoyed the episode, please like it and share it with anyone who you think might be interested in its contents. We're back next Friday with a brand new episode. Until then, you've been listening to The Recluse's Cookbook, and I'm your host, Vinnie McHale.
My mother always told me that I had a splendid voice. In fact, I'd sing in opera if they'd give me my choice. I wrote to Oscar Hammerstein that I would be his star. He said, come down and sing for me, and I'll see how good you are. And I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months. No, I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months. I sang the wise old owl, and he left the room at once. So I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months.